When you're feeling ill, it's natural that you want to take whatever you can to feel better. However, there's a very dangerous practice that we have developed that has become a major global concern. That is the way we use antibiotics.
First of all, I think antibiotics are widely misused. Okay, it's an excellent tool we have to fight infection, to help people get better, but many times, unfortunately, on both sides, both on the client side and the caregiver side, it's misused. No?
According to internist Dr. Fernando Cuellar, the most misuse of antibiotics occurs when treating colds and flus.
One of the biggest reasons for consultation would be respiratory tract infection overall, no? Meaning that you have a stuffy nose or a sore throat or a cough. And either if it's a cold, as we commonly say, or a leaf flu, many times people feel like they need to use antibiotics for that, no? And it's not so, because these respiratory tract 3 out of 4 times is caused by viral infection. Antibiotics are for bacterial infections. Respiratory tract infections are usually caused by viral infection. So by using one antibiotic, you're misusing it. I'm not saying that at certain times, indeed, you will need to use an antibiotic for respiratory tract infection. For example, if you have a sore throat and you are reviewed and you say the tonsils look pussy and that kind of thing, then of course you know that more than likely it's caused by one bacteria agent, so you use your antibiotics for that.
This is why scientists across the world are urging people and medical professionals to stop the frequent use of antibiotics. Antibiotics resistance, as it's called, has already become a common medical challenge. What happens is bacteria can change, and when we misuse antibiotics, we allow for that bacteria that the medication is made to kill to adapt and no longer be affected by that specific medication. As a rule of thumb, you should never use antibiotics that are not prescribed for you, as all antibiotics are not the same and do not treat the same infections.
The bacteria have certain affinity, certain liking towards different parts of the body. So the selection of the antibiotic, you wouldn't select the same antibiotic for a urinary tract infection versus one respiratory tract infection versus one digestive infection versus one skin infection. So the caregiver, the doctor, the nurse has to know what he's treating and what type of bacteria is most commonly involved in the different parts of the body.
Now tell me a bit about some of the commonly overused or misused antibiotics.
Immediately what comes to mind is ampicillin and amoxicillin. Okay, it's could be almost referred to as an over-the-counter type antibiotic, which shouldn't be so. Each antibiotic, even the ampicillin, should be given only with a prescription. Okay, nobody should have access to antibiotic over the counter, so that has to be prescribed. And that has led exactly to the biggest problem we have with ampicillin and amoxicillin, that it has become insensitive, it has become ineffective to treating different infection. No? We see a lot of resistance. What happens after that is that we have to use other choices, other antibiotics, which are more powerful, which are more expensive, which are less available, which comes with higher, so it leads to more problems down the road. No?
Also, no matter how soon you feel better, if you've been prescribed antibiotics, take it until it's completed. An incomplete treatment can also lead to resistance. The theme for this year's Awareness Week is seek advice from qualified healthcare professionals about taking antibiotics. Dr. Cuellar also urges all medical professionals to do their part.
My experience is that they would come into the office, they would come, and it's a hard process to convince them that they do not need antibiotic. And I've had many cases where they leave the office without a prescription and they say, well, I never get no antibiotics, so I wasn't treated adequately. Then they would go to another caregiver and would get, and then say, no, he did not want to. Okay, the person would have gotten better anyway, but they feel like taking antibiotics make their recovery faster. So it's a hard judgment call. I have to remind myself many times not to misuse, and I'm sure that all of my colleagues are faced with that same dilemma, no? When to use antibiotic. I mean, there are guidelines that we try to follow, but each person is different. No?
Antibiotics have been and continues to be a very efficient tool in medical care, but not when we misuse it. If you're feeling sick, think twice and seek advice.
But common sense will say, okay, after 3 days you're not feeling better of having a cold or a flu or so, then you consult and then you discuss with your caregiver whether or not you need the antibiotics, why, ask questions, challenge your doctor, okay, challenge your nurse, and then you decide together, you know.